Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Boosting Adult Learner Enrollment at Community Colleges, Strategies for Enrollment Marketing Success. Before we begin, I just want to do a quick audio check to make sure we can hear and that the closed captioning is properly working. So if a few people could just raise your hand and use that feature to let me know that the audio is coming through loud and clear, I'd really appreciate it. And then let us know in the chat if you have any other assistance that you need while troubleshooting, and one of my team members would be happy to help. All right, I see hands raised, so that's awesome. Everyone can hear my audio, and I'll just go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining us today. And a few starting details, a couple of housekeeping items to cover before I dive into the presentation. So today's webinar will last about 45 minutes and saving the last 15 for a Q&A. So to submit a question, you can do so at any time. So please use the Zoom control panel's Q&A feature to send a question directly to me and my colleagues who are managing the Q&A. And so we will answer as many questions as time allows at the end of the webinar. Some of those questions may get answered in real time if they are short and simple, so keep an eye out. And so we've also opened the Zoom chat room feature. And so feel free to share ideas and interact with attendees. Definitely want to make this conversational. So just make sure that you are having your share settings to be set to all attendees and presenters. And so this webinar is also being recorded and will be shared along with today's session deck. So via email next week. So just keep your eye out on that, and happy to follow up with any other questions that may pop up. And finally, please help us help you by filling out the quick post-webinar survey that you will receive at the end of this webinar. So your comments and ratings are really helpful and appreciated, because that also helps influence the next topic discussion points for future webinars. And you'll receive that follow-up notification encouraging you to submit the survey shortly after we conclude today's session. All right. Well, I am your presenter today, so I am excited to be spending the next hour with you all. My name is Christy Phillips. I am a Senior Director of Client Success, and I have earned my doctorate in educational leadership from Washington State University, where I focused my doctoral research on the business of prior learning to recruit adult learners. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about really attracting adult learners, specifically the some college no credential population. And so during our time together, we are going to talk about that adult learner, some college no credential population, give some quick overviews and stats that have been produced recently within this last year, talking about identifying and engaging adult learners, and then really diving into building and engaging your adult learner audience, talking about different platforms and tools to really authentically build and engage with that audience. And then last but not least, really diving into how to measure and optimize your return on investment for any types of digital marketing efforts that you're doing. And then we'll dive into the questions and answers that may pop up during today's conversation. So really want to just set the tone and the conversation for day by talking about, whether your college is located in rural, suburban, or urban type areas. It really is no surprise that we're facing seas of change as higher education faces new demographic realities of fewer traditional age students. This has been a topic of conversation for quite some time. And so I'll share also that in recent months, the Census Bureau also updated its forecast of projected number of high school graduates. So instead of rebounding at some time in the mid-2030s like they originally predicted, the number of 18-year-olds is really now projected to peak around 4.2 million graduates at about 2023, and is expected to shrink to about a population of 3.8 million by 2039. What also is new that they've recently shared is that they don't anticipate the population of 18-year-olds to ever exceed 4 million people at any time during this century. So with that in mind, it really is an important time if you haven't been thinking of adult learners or really thinking of refining and optimizing that audience within your service area or the communities you serve. And now is a good time to start thinking about that. And so let's go over some recent stats released this year by the National Student Clearinghouse and other publications like Inside Higher Ed and the Chronicle of Higher Education. I'll also share that the links directly to the resources where I pulled these stats will be linked in the proposal deck that you also get shared with, so that you have access to that information to dive deeper if you want to. So to date, there's around 37 million 18 to 64-year-olds with the some college no credential population. So with that in mind, there are ways to think about this population of how best to serve them and also how best to engage with them on the different platforms of digital medium that they are using. So on a positive note, the National Student Clearinghouse also shared that this population saw a 9% increase of re-enrollment in the 2023 academic year. So while we see a lot of news out there about declining enrollments, a positive trajectory is that this population is starting to return and re-enroll at an increasing rate. And so we'd also be really remiss to not mention how online modality plays into engaging with the some college no credential population. So primarily online institutions are increasingly a sector for this student population. And often, I'm sure it is no surprise, we see that is because of the flexibility of learning. These students are balancing work-life balance, personal lives, navigating childcare, lots of different factors and stressors that are impacting their enrollment. So at a surface level, oftentimes the primarily online institutions look very attractive to those students, but there's also an opportunity to really emphasize if your college specifically offers a good subset of courses online or does have some signature online programs, to really communicate that on the front end, because that may boost the awareness. Your college does offer that and does have those flexible learning styles for students. We also saw that as we returned to on-campus learning post-pandemic, a lot of community colleges were still offering at least half of their courses online in response to that student demand. And so knowing that there is a wide range of ages, from that 18 to 64 population of adult learners, knowing that there is a majority of, 42% are about the age of 30 or older, that really can play into a targeting demographic when you're looking at crafting your adult learner audience. So something we'll talk about in a later section of, these different demographic variables and how they play into audience targeting. And then as I dive into my next set of slides that really kind of are snippets from the National Student Clearinghouse's 2024 report, I thought that this slide really succinctly captures a summary of the data that I'm about to share. So really, this population continues to be less white and are more male than the overall undergraduate population. And so recent stopouts, however, continue to be younger and more female than the overall some college no credential population. And so this slide really talks about the racial composition. And what I really want to just highlight here quickly is talking about how, while the population itself has remained relatively stable, there are some notable differences compared to the current undergraduate enrollment population. So you'll see that ethno-racial minorities are overrepresented in the some college no credential population, especially as you're thinking of, the different types of initiatives or service programs your campus may offer. If your college is a Hispanic Serving Institute and HSI designation, thinking about this overrepresentation is definitely something to really think about your messaging strategy. So for example, when you look at this, the July 2022, Hispanic students made up about almost 25% of the some college no credential population, but they only comprised just about 21% of the overall undergraduates during the 22-23 academic year. So that really can help think about ways that you can boost awareness and familiarity through different messaging strategies. And so this graph also talks about how recent stopouts are younger and more likely to be female than the existing some college no credential population. That really is no surprise, as we know that life itself is one of the biggest competitors against enrolling at community college. There is a lot of things that may disrupt a student's experience. And so keeping that in mind when you're thinking about your student population is also really critical. And then, when we're thinking about the dropout rates of students stalling and stopping out, there really is an important note here that primarily primarily associate degree granting baccalaureates, that's always a tongue twister, and public two-year institution types accounted for more than 2/3 of the Some College No Credential students, and these were the only ones to actually see stop-outs decline within the last several years. So overall, while this population has increased to about 2.9%, you can see that there is a positive indicator specifically in the two-year space that there has been less stop-outs. And lastly, I'll round out my data sharing slides talking about just giving a visual representation specifically with this. At a glance, you can see that blue section on my screen really is talking about and represents the associate degrees. So across all different types of race and ethnicity, associate degrees shows that this is the credential type that continues to be the primary designation for the Some College No Credential re-enrollees. And so as we wrap up this section of really talking about, kind of the state of the state and the, overall factors of the Some College No Credential population, here are some of the key benefits about really why you should be really dialing in your strategies and focusing on this population. At a state level, they really can accelerate the workforce development and make state economies more competitive. For the colleges themselves, you can really address and start helping with the enrollment shortfalls you may see from the traditional high school market of attracting students to your campuses. And then most importantly, we all are in this for the bettering the lives of students. And so for the Some College No Credential students, this truly does allow for social and economic mobility to start or advance their careers. Also, I wanted to, and I have this linked as a resource for you all. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the National Student Clearinghouse does have a data dashboard, which can be used as a helpful tool for you to see how your state compares to the nation regarding the Some College No Credential population breakout. So you can enter your state and really see how that breakout compares to other states nearby, maybe if you're in a bordering community, or just nationwide as well. So really dialing in with that regional focus. So now that we've talked about this, let's dive into identifying and engaging adult learners. So in this section, we will take some time to discuss recognizing the characteristics of adult learners and really discussing how to create those targeted messages that truly resonate with this audience and their needs and their goals to really drive those actions, such as requesting information, applying, or registering for courses. So when we're thinking high level overall, it really is important to recognize demographic and psychographic variables of adult learners because both really do play a role into how to build a digital marketing strategy to engage with your audience. So demographically, really thinking, 25 to 44-year-olds often is the targeting range if you're thinking broad swath of different adult learners to focus on for credit-bearing courses. They're looking for career advancement, skill enhancement. Some may have some college, or they may also have a degree but are seeking additional qualifications, looking for that change of pace as well into a different career themselves. Common motivators really are improving job prospects, changing careers, completing an unfinished education. And overall, I feel these behaviors that really do motivate them play a critical role into the messaging and the creative that you use in your campaigns. So they truly do desire flexible learning. They're comfortable with digital tools and online learning platforms, but more importantly, they may need some support in the front end of how to navigate those tools. And their decision to enroll is often influenced by cost, time commitment, and that return on investment. So now that we have the traits of an adult learner, I'm going to shift gears to kind of highlight a few messaging strategy examples. So the first one really talks about emphasizing flexibility. If that is one of the pillars that you're wanting to stand on with your communication to your adult learner population. So your messaging really should focus on balancing education with work and family life. And the reason is because these adult learners are juggling multiple responsibilities. So being able to highlight at a very upfront communication level of evening or weekend classes, online classes, really to fit their schedule. We're trying to reduce the barriers of them, negating the no's as to why they should not re-enroll or enroll for the first time. So having communications and creative that speaks to this why can really help emphasize the flexibility that your college campus offers. When we're talking about offering reassurance and support, knowing that they're not alone, they get the support they need to help them succeed is a great also pillar and messaging strategy to ladder in your communications. So the reason why is because returning to school, as we know, is intimidating for adults. A lot has changed since maybe the last time they stopped on campus. So reassuring them with the messaging, understanding that just because something makes sense to us on the front end, since we live and breathe these different types of enrollment steps every day, is something really also to consider because you want to reduce those barriers. So being able to talk about resources such as academic advising, tutoring, career counseling, and student support services in your digital communications is really key with this population. And then you also want to communicate the ease of enrollment. Being an open access campus really does allow you to, at the front end, communicate that there is less steps and barriers to get that foot on campus. And so getting started is easy. Apply today and take the first steps towards your future. And really talking about and simplifying the enrollment process. We've often seen a lot of times that it may take a student 3 to 5 times to enroll on a campus. And quite frankly, that is because they submitted the application and they were unsure of those next steps. They were waiting for someone to communicate to them. So knowing that, how can you insert that into your communications to push them to register? And then at the end, you really do want to tailor that messaging to your audience. So there really are advanced capabilities of targeting various subsets of adult learners. So for career changers, a good example is ready for a new career, start here. For parents, you really can set an example for your kids and achieve your dreams. And for veterans, transitioning to civilian life with education and career support. So we're wanting to help paint that picture with our creative to these specific audiences that we're serving content to. So with that in mind, our previous sections really provided us with a demographic landscape around the audiences, as well as some of their behaviors and motivation for re-enrolling. So really knowing this information can help us better understand how to target and authentically engage with this population across various digital platforms. So now we're going to talk about building that adult learner audience. And when I start, I really wanted to give this high-level overview of some of the various ways in which we're approaching building an audience for digital marketing. So whether you are doing your digital marketing efforts yourself, you're working with a vendor like CLARUS, different ways that are building your audiences, these are some of our main areas and thought processes that we go through. So truly, the first place to start is with your own data, and that really does include your historical enrollment data, students who had stopped out and not persisted, defining your audience and characteristics. I think one of the most underutilized resources is connecting with faculty to see the students that are in their classroom, learning to hear what are their hobbies, what are their interests, because that all can factor into building an audience that you're targeting your messaging to. Secondly, there's a lot of channel and external data out there. For example, one of the things that I always like to hit on is Answer the Public as a tool. So that is an SEO tool that really helps people understand what people are searching. So it is a way to visualize popular search queries from platforms like Google and Bing. A lot of times that can also help inform and dial in your messaging strategy to adult learners to see what are the common questions going on out there. And then lastly, there's partner data. So a lot of times this can be building audiences within a demand side platform like Simplify. It can also be working with a vendor such as one of our partners is College App, being able to purchase lists of intent to enroll. And I'll talk about that as well when we're talking about list strategies. So now that we've seen kind of at the high level the various audiences that we can target, I'm going to dive into how lists play a role in engaging with that adult learner population. So I found this to be a really powerful statistic in the National Student Clearinghouse's 2024 report, because I think that it truly speaks to the value of engaging your stop-out population. So from the various campaigns and research projects that we've had the privilege of running with the colleges that we partner with, we found that it really does take roughly about 3 years for a student to re-return. You know, they had that disruption in life. They've got to get things in order before they can re-enroll. So that really has been about the average sweet spot that we've seen that a student then considers and re-enrolls on campus. So knowing that well over half of the Some College No Credential re-enrollees return to the same school, there really is a power behind looking at your historical enrollment data. Oftentimes we ask a college to kind of think of the last 3 to 5 years of stop outs. Using that to really curate and prioritize a list to engage with can be very powerful. But also another way to build a list is by making list purchases. So one of the ways that we've helped colleges curate and purchase lists is through partners and friends at College App. And so I wanted to highlight some of their information as well. And so they launched in 2019 and partner with more than 200 colleges and universities, really with the power of predictive analytics that are focused on the future intent to enroll. So that really can allow for an efficient adult student recruitment strategy, specifically because a lot of times we've got limited time and resources to create ads, we've got limited budget. So being able to really hit on that intent to enroll can really help dive into being able to have a strong marketing strategy. So being able to, you're not getting just a list of prospects, but more importantly, you're curating a list of adult learners with that intent to enroll. They've expressed interest in one way or another that they are interested in attending a post-secondary experience. One of the things that I want to highlight here is that you can also build out your audience on other factors such as institutional preference. So if they're already wanting to seek working and enrolling at a community and technical college, but also program interest. And so on the screen, you can also see that you can target specifically that Some College No Credential program or population. And then also if you've got a grant for a specific program that you need to do some digital marketing efforts for, or you're declining enrollment in certain areas, you can dial in your strategy based off of different areas of interest as well. And I'm going to round out talking about list purchasing and the power of ones that have that predictability of intent to enroll, but also more importantly, talking about these reporting metrics that they shared, because I feel that this is a very strong performance indication of the ability of finding your right audience at your right time for digital marketing campaigns. You already know that they have expressed interest in attending college. They have that intent to enroll. You can dial in based off of audience types of specific programs. And so it really allows you to be targeted with your digital reach and messaging. And that often speaks in the ROI of the digital reporting against other standard industry benchmarks. So collectively, we know that there is a growing emphasis with the way in which colleges can be more personalized. And we also know that regardless of student age, they are expecting more of that personalized experience. You can customize anything these days, and so they are not expecting that stopgap of having messaging about education not being personalized. So the ability to use something like a purchase list or a stop out list of your current enrollees or past enrollees really allows you to create that precise audience. That precise audience really does have that power of insight into what their motivators are, what their interests are. You really can start to paint that picture and be able to dial in your messaging strategy. So that can really help drive those conversion actions like requesting more information, applying, or registering for classes. So when we're thinking about personalization and how it plays into the ways you engage with your list of students, here are some of those best practices to definitely keep in mind. Being able to develop and manage segmented lists really does allow for that customization that they are seeking. And so that, especially during an attention deficit economy, when we've got different types of ads coming at us all of the time, being able to hit a message that's really going to resonate with them really can capture their attention because they're already thinking about something like that in one way or another. Being able to personalize marketing campaigns through that segmentation, there are some great capabilities of being able to A/B test different types of campaign ads. So that can even be just changing one of the words in your call out that you have. It can be changing an image, being able to test those different things to see what types of personalization truly do resonate, and then really aligning your enrollment strategy with a good user experience. For example, you know the fact that those students have enrolled on your campus before and have stopped out. Having a digital campaign that really speaks to, we miss you, we want you back, or talking about the front end of, what does that re-enrollment process look like? Being able to communicate things like that really can help dial in a good user experience for those students to really give them that higher propensity to re-enroll. Now that we've talked about some of the different types of ways of curating lists, I want to talk about the power of programmatic when it comes to building your digital marketing strategy. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar, programmatic marketing through a demand side platform, a DSP, is an automated method for buying and managing digital ads. We really like the power of this because it gives you a technology to really target a specific audience on websites, apps that they're using, and digital channels such as display, video, and social media ads. Display really does allow you the broadest access to your audience. So with real-time bidding, your ads can display on the apps and different platforms that they are engaging with. So it allows you to target various lifestyle categories such as sports, pets, food, drinks. That's where it really comes into play when I mentioned earlier about the asking your faculty, what are the hobbies? What are the interests of their students? Because all of those different types of demographic variables can play into crafting an audience with programmatic advertising. And so being able to have this broad inventory of ads network that you can have your ad display really does provide a broad reach. One of the ones that I specifically want to highlight is connected TV, since it's been growing popularity with the different colleges that we work with. It's a very strong branding and awareness tactic to get that visibility and be able to also segment the ads that students are going to be seeing. So it is a tactic that really does play a growing popularity, primarily because consumers are cutting the cords of smart in favor of those smart TVs. So whether you are running the app specifically on your TV itself, being able to have video ads that are marketing and engaging this tactic allows for that advanced audience targeting. So you can layer in those demographic variables. Oftentimes, and I just want to briefly touch on it since it's newer, ZTV is a competitively priced option of connected TV. So maybe you've explored connected TV before and you haven't been able to have the budget for it. ZTV might be something that you could consider since it's competitively priced with traditional broadcast TV, linear TV, and it offers targeting at a zip code level. And then there's the ability to layer just age, gender, and household income to craft your audience. So that can really help you if you are looking for, historically underserved populations. ZTV might be a good branding and awareness strategy if you've got limited budget. Going to shift gears a little bit and talk about some paid social platforms as well. And so Meta is an overarching social technology company that owns both Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and a couple more, but really wanted to talk about, how Meta aims to connect people in meaningful ways through its platform. So through fostering communities, enabling businesses to reach their target audiences effectively. The ads can be a singular image. Also, video ads have gained popularity and interest because it allows them to consume your content in a dynamic way. And so these ads can be used to build awareness, increase event registrations, drive leads, and conversions as well. So some of the ways that you can do audience targeting and that I'll hit on are interest-based targeting. So an example would be with specific industries. So let's say you're wanting to target workers in industries where further education or certifications are common. So that could include healthcare, IT, IT or business. Behavioral targeting, life events are a good example of that. You can target individuals who have recently changed jobs, they've recently moved, they've got a new job or a new life event that pops up. You can use that as targeting, especially what we've seen in the post-pandemic world. There's been lots of shifts into new neighborhoods, specifically because of remote working, allowing that flexibility. So you could target somebody who recently moved into your service area. And then retargeting, we'll talk about that on a later slide as well, but retargeting those visitors that have gone to your website already, you can target them in Meta as well. And so being able to then further your conversation about program details, application pages, continuing that next step in the conversation. On my screen right here, I'm sharing one of the screen grabs of Meta's advanced targeting options. So there are various interests and niches from lifestyle and entertainment to education and business that you can target in Meta as a platform for advertisement. So this really allows marketers to tailor the content and the messaging to resonate with specific audience subsets. So really, a lot of these targeting parameters are only available on Meta, but some other social platforms are also catching up now with some specific targeting capabilities, which is going to lead me into talking about our next paid platforms, which are Snapchat and TikTok. So one of the ways that is growing popularity, especially with Gen X and millennials, is going to be Snapchat and TikTok. Both of these are paid social platforms that are growing the popularity because of the video contents that people consume when they are passively passing time, engaging and just relaxing, or also sometimes looking for content as well. So some of the beneficial ways that you can leverage these platforms to create an adult learner audience includes with Snapchat, some of their targeting includes locations, demographics, and predefined audiences. And then also with TikTok, you can use keyword targeting. You can use content-rich lead forms, so you're already reducing some of those barriers of an instant form template for them to send information to engage with you. So both of these would be some good options to consider, but more importantly, your population's best. So it's always worth having a conversation to explore to see how much of your population is specifically on one of these platforms, or maybe there is a very specific program that you're marketing for. Maybe it's early career changers. These could be good platforms to consider when you're looking at building and crafting an audience. So this is just a highlight, an example of Snapchat's advanced targeting demographics. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to highlight that with their targeting capabilities, you can also specifically target the some college as an education level. So if you're struggling within your area, you may not even, use Snapchat as a category, but even just being able to dive into the platform itself and looking to see what could that potential audience size be could be some good information just to keep in your toolkit as you're building and defining your strategies. And then I want to round out our discussion about talking about digital marketing, programmatic, and paid social by talking about how list and paid social media can help you build an adult learner audience by building lookalike audiences. So this can be accomplished for both programmatic display and social media platforms like Meta, Snapchat, and TikTok. An example of this would be when we use a college's list that they provided to us, let's say their Stop At list, and we create a lookalike audience to run an addressable geofencing campaign. So taking that list, creating one that has very similar demographic targeting capabilities, and then we're serving ads into the homes of those lookalike audiences that mirrors the original list. There really is a power in that, finding those new students that already have that higher likelihood of maybe enrolling because they have very similar demographics and variables like your current students. It allows them to boost engagement with targeted ads because they're more likely to also be looking for similar content. And it also helps drive conversion and ROI. So even if it's just used for branding and awareness, it's helping foster that community and that awareness of the conversations and the narrative that you're wanting students to know within your predefined, communities you serve or service area about who you are and what you have to offer. So when discussing digital strategies, I truly would be remiss if I didn't talk about how paid search plays into engaging with adult learners. And so I just want to briefly touch about how paid search has also been a proven effective strategy in driving leads and enrollment for community colleges, because you are capturing the interest of somebody who is already leaning into their student search journey, their fact-finding mission of considering enrolling at college for the first time or maybe re-enrolling. So leveraging PPC really does ensure that your college is appearing at the forefront when prospective students are searching for content related to your offerings. A good example of that could be somebody who is searching on Google for terms like finish my degree or going back to college. They're looking maybe just for some thought pieces of, some motivation of being able to re-enroll. And so being able to target those keywords can allow them to start seeing some ads specifically related to your college to really help cultivate that narrative of re-enrolling. Also, we know that there is often a challenge that community and technical colleges face when executing an effective SEO strategy, quite frankly, because of the variety of programs that are offered. Those are a lot of keywords that then need to be ranked by Google or Bing or other search indexes. And so being able to understand that there is that lift of already being able to rank, being able to have a well-planned PPC strategy could be very beneficial of bidding on keywords that you do want to rank and have that top attention span for students. So just some things to keep in mind as you're thinking of your comprehensive digital strategy. That really is going to lead me into talking about measuring and optimizing your return on investment. At the end of the day, all of these digital marketing efforts should not go on without an effective way to measure and optimize your return on investment. There are a lot of different ways that colleges are needing to report out outcomes, whether that is for Perkins funding, it's for a board of trustees wanting to know about the digital efforts from the very first time, different ways and different levers to really specifically measure your return on investment. And so regardless if you're managing these efforts in-house or partnering with a digital agency partner, it really is important to ensure that there is transparency and visibility into how your campaigns are performing. So really doing so ensures that you are targeting the right audience on the right platforms and delivering the right message. So being able to have a reporting dashboard or setting up your Google Analytics on your website itself really allows for live and comprehensive campaign dashboarding. You can set specific KPIs on your different platforms. So what is that action that you're wanting to drive them to? Is it to website traffic and visiting? Is it specifically a lead form? Is it a registration push for current students? Lots of different ways. There's also channel-specific benchmarking. So across the various platforms themselves, a lot of times we're seeing there's a growing popularity of having education as a vertical of benchmarking. Something that we provide at CLARUS is an internal dashboard of benchmarking, specifically for knowing the number of campaigns that we are running. We've created our own benchmarking data for different things such as programmatic, meta, different paid search platforms. And so testing also around audiences, and this is where I want to spend some time talking about the power of something like using Looker Studio for a dashboard. So you can test around audiences, creative, keywords, and placement. Really, it is a way to see what is the type of thing that is driving that action and igniting that spark. Is it simply changing where a call to action button is on a page? Is it going to be the way that the image is? Is there one that's more family oriented and one that has a student on campus? Being able to have that creativity and playing with those different things, having a live campaign dashboard can allow you to see in real time the differences that are driving those actions. So being able to have a campaign up and running and being able to test in those different capacities. And then more importantly, CRM data insights to inform lead quality. We know that there is sometimes there's not a CRM that is full-fledged and set up automated. There's lots of challenges and barriers with technology in that space. So being able to also think about how can we dial in different ways to ensuring that our lead forms are getting to the folks that we need to, having conversations for tracking and visibility. So all of these different things really play into the effectiveness of your campaign itself. And so being able to have a partner or a sounding board in the space that's helping you also can be really key of making different strategy discussions, refining and targeting your audience, and really seeing what's going to help move the needle to drive that enrollment itself. Something else and why we always really advocate if there is a list that you're running for campaigns, whether that's a purchase list, whether it's a stop out list, there's also other lists that colleges can provide for digital campaigns. Something that we do that I really wanted to highlight was enrollment matching. So this is for list-based campaigns that we run for colleges. We can offer this as a reporting feature. It's something that we also include on their dashboard reporting, but enrollment matching truly does allow us to show a college the return on investment by comparing the campaign cost to the dollars earned per enrolled credit hour. So after we run a geofencing or a funnel campaign, once that concludes, if a college is able to provide us with a list of the addresses that we serve those ads to, we can do a comparison to see out of how many of those homes or apartments that we dropped ads onto from that original list, how many of those actually enrolled. So we do that calculation to really show and create a visual to help convey the return on investment, to help paint that narrative of the important role that digital does play. Since more importantly, we know that there is lots of different ways that students in the adult learner audience are finding out where to go, who is a college that maybe they feel comfortable with seeking. So the more data and the transparency that you can communicate for your digital efforts really does help communicate and advocate for those marketing dollars. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to questions. And so we got 5 extra minutes of questions too, if there are questions that have popped up. So I know that this concludes the presentation session of the webinar, but as a friendly reminder, I want to submit, if you want to submit a question, please use the Zoom control panel's Q&A feature. So I want to also thank my colleague Katie Santisi for helping me facilitate the Q&A portion. So Katie, are there any questions that maybe we want to dive into?
Not quite yet, but we can give it just a minute and see if
Yeah.
we get any.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to give it a few moments. And if there's any type of topic that I briefly touched on, if there's something you want me to go back and spend a little bit more time on, I am happy to do that as well.
Alrighty, Christy. So we have a couple coming in the chat. So the first one is from Becca, and she asks, would we be able to receive the PowerPoint after the session? Which the answer to that is yes. We're going to send out the recording and the presentation next week. So be checking your email for that. And then the next one is from Jill. So she asks, do you have any insights into times of year that adults prefer to start? Do they like more frequent start dates or follow more traditional schedules?
I would say that a lot of times, often we see that fall tends to be that common, everyone's always got that mindset. You've got advertisements going on for back to school. So that definitely always still seems to be the top of push in mind, I would say, for a fall start. That being said, I would be remiss to also not mention the power of, New Year's resolutions and, new starts and goals. Definitely engaging a stop out list, mid-year could be a good advantage as well because maybe they have some New Year's resolutions really framed around wanting to enrich their lives or, wanting to start that new year fresh. So you could tailor some campaigns in that regard too. Good question, Jill.
Alrighty, and then we have another one from Jackie asking, can you explain College App for social media use? We are familiar with College App to generate lists in College App, but interested how we use it to connect on social media as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely speak high level about that, but definitely would, love to communicate in a follow-up. But with paid social media, there is the ability to also upload a list. So for example, since it is an adult list, Meta's privacy restrictions of not being able to target list only applies to the under 18 audience. So for example, with the colleges that we work with, if they have a purchase list that they have purchased, you own that data that you're able to engage with. So what we do is upload that into a platform and we're able to match email addresses to social media accounts to be able to then serve different types of display ads. So whether it's a static ad or a video ad, so any of the paid media platforms that do allow for uploading lists, so Meta, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and Instagram, you could target and run a very specific campaign to reach those students on their different social platforms that they're engaging with. So sometimes we definitely like to say that this can be a good part of an overarching strategy. So making sure that you have different pillars in place of ways to engage with your audience. But there is the power of then uploading that list. And like I had also talked about with lookalike audiences, we can start to use some of those in-platform tools and features to then also see who else is out there that is mirroring that audience list of that list that you purchased to broaden that audience if maybe it was smaller in scale within your service area.
Awesome questions so far. That is it for right now, but we'll give it another minute in case that prompted any other questions from anyone else.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, we have another one from Ellen. Ellen asks, will you give a little bit more detail about personalization in digital marketing?
So personalization in digital marketing, I think really starts out with asking who is that audience? If it is a list of students who had stopped out, for example, wanting to communicate and acknowledge the fact that they have been on your campus before is a very key point of personalization. So instead of having a very general campaign that says apply today, you can have we miss you campaign, for example, that really hits on talking about how you acknowledge the fact that they've been on campus. As somebody is scrolling through different content on their phone, and if they have an ad that pops up that says, we miss you or we want you back, that can catch their attention. That's something that they're not expecting. So it helps disrupt it. So being able to have your creative, so the various ads that you're running really hit on that audience, you can also then carry that through to the landing page that you're wanting that student to then go on. So instead of just having it be a request for information page, for example, with a stop out, you would really specifically want to hit on, what are those steps to re-register for classes? So if your college has different policies to where maybe if they just hadn't enrolled for 2 terms or, that's been a 3-year window, if those look different based off of what the list is, we want to reduce the barriers of getting them to not take an action. So being able to really streamline to see comprehensively what the process is going to be. So the power of with lists and audiences is if you're looking to target based off of different interests and programs, you can tailor that communication and that digital advertisement based off of what you know of that audience. We do have a great blog on our website that also talks about, different AI tools that can help you create different ad sets and creative needs as well, especially knowing that there's limited time in the day and resources to either A/B test or do different creative ad sets. There's some cool tools out there that can really help you create those too.
Awesome. And we do have another couple of questions. Uh,
Great.
we have one that says, speak to a college's stop out list. Would the email addresses that the college have be accurate after 3 years?
Yeah, so that really does have a good question and something that definitely wanting to address. So with stop outs, oftentimes we are using the physical mailing address, so that directory level information that doesn't require any PII. With that address, we then our kind of, foundational digital strategy we would recommend would be digital display ads, so that power of programmatic advertising delivering specifically into that addressable home, that address itself. So oftentimes you may change your email address more than your physical address location. So oftentimes it does have that higher, stronger match rate with the stop out. But also what we have seen sometimes is, those that are in a home that maybe a college student was in at one time, oftentimes have other college students that may be there as well. So even if it's not a direct match, sometimes you may get another student who is looking as well. So sometimes that can also help play in a part of a bigger strategy. But oftentimes we start with the physical address itself. And then, for other things, we can use email addresses. So typically we like to start with physical address if we can, because that is going to give us more of a higher match rate.
And I would also add to that on any of the social platforms, whenever we can get a list that includes any information that you have, whether that be email address or phone number, we can use additional variables to also try to match out if we don't get a match on the email address. So that's just something to note as well.
Awesome.
And
Thank
then
you, Katie.
yeah. And then we have another question from Ebony. Ebony asks, do you believe student success stories or alumni stories have significant impact on prospective adult students?
100%. We recently did a external perception research project with a community college and out here on the West Coast. And one of the highest things that ranked for seeing awareness and familiarity specifically was word of mouth. Being able to hear it from a student themselves, their experience, or an alumni, their success stories, I would say that is specifically some content that is going to help emote and drive action. Also, specifically, there may be more sticky content, such as, a sweet, short, 15-30 second video that you could put together of a student talking about their experience or an alumni. That type of content can also help paint a stronger picture of the level of support. It's giving the examples of the proof points of the student success support that the college offers, but hearing it from a student themselves really helps boost that trust, because it's a student saying it versus the college saying it. It's less self-serving in the sense. Great question.
All right. And the next one says, what do you think are the best ways to market to prospective adult students on LinkedIn? What type of population seem to be the best to target on LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say definitely there is a growing popularity of adult learners on LinkedIn. There's some great tools to look at the audience targeting capabilities. And so I would say a lot of times that can be career shifters. And so looking to see what their interests are, if you have, a certification program that you're looking to promote, being able to use that and leverage employers to promote that awareness, but then also looking at specific, students who may be needing that upskilling or that credential to change and shift careers. So there's definitely some great audience targeting capabilities in LinkedIn to really hone in if there's a specific, program or workforce initiative that you're wanting to support on your college campus.
Yeah, great point, Christy. And I would also note that LinkedIn is yet another place that we can utilize lists and retargeting as well. So that is also a great way to re-engage. And LinkedIn also offers us the ability to send a conversation or a sponsored content message, which gives us a lot more room than a traditional digital ad on other mediums to really give a lot more information to that prospective student. And they also have a somewhat new product type called document ads that allow you to feature like a piece of content. So if you are producing any sort of content or infographic or brochure or anything like that that might be relevant to an adult specific audience, that's also something that you could spotlight and use all of those great targeting capabilities that Christy mentioned to hone in on that specific audience and then showcase that piece of content as well. Alrighty, that is all the questions that we have so far. I'll give it another minute since we've got so many great ones that have rolled in as the time has gone on. Okay. I don't see any others, so I think we're all set to wrap up.
Yeah, well, thanks, Katie. So as we wrap up that Q&A, a quick friendly reminder, please don't forget to fill out our post-webinar survey. It takes less than 3 minutes to complete and is incredibly helpful to our teams. So as we're always looking to improve, but more importantly, also diving deeper into different things that are of interest to you and can really help support your conversation. I know that my wheels are already turning based off of just these questions that we've got today of different ways that we can loop in strategists and subject matter expertise, of different ways to really communicate and follow up with more additional resources of blogs and webinar content as well. So thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again at another CLARUS webinar. Thank you all.